Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Wytisha Williams. Wytisha has a very powerful story, so I hope you guys listen to the end and then support her by, purchasing her book. Wytisha is the author of the book, He Wouldn't Let Me Die. To not walk in the purpose that you were given life for. Is life not worth living? Welcome, Wytisha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Can't wait to share your story with my listeners. All right, so let me give you guys a short bio. Wytisha Williams is a mental health counselor, PLPC, born in Louisiana. She's also a disabled United States Army veteran and transformational speaker. She coined the word mind empowerment, which was inspired by the understanding that every challenge begins and ends with the mind. I second that. She created the character M.E., who is a white eagle with a crown and cape that represents her brand, which signifies a person soaring above the obstacles that were meant to destroy any person. The crown signifies being a conqueror of adversity, and the cape represents being a superhero to oneself. Wytisha knows that to defeat any challenge, you must empower, equip, and properly nurture the mind. Yes, so great bio, Wytisha, great introduction. But it doesn't begin to cover what we're going to be talking about today, which is very deep. So, as I went on Amazon and looked at your description of your book when I was preparing for this interview, this is the first statement, and it just speaks volumes. And this is basically what it says. This book is based on a series of true events, such as the gruesome experience of a mother trying to murder her child while the same child endures sexual abuse by their biological father. So I don't need to say any more. I'm already getting chills. So can you share your story with us? Don't give too much away because we want people to buy your book, but
Absolutely.
Just so that we can connect with the audience, share your story with us, please.
Okay. My life growing up was pretty much a life full of dysfunction, severe and extreme trauma. And as you read part of the summary, the two people that actually brought me into this world, the most important people in my life, or could have been in my life, the breathers of life, the givers of life, pretty much caused me the most trauma. During the age of 5, my mother, again, tried to take my life. And then in the process, around the same age, my father, I endured an experience of molestation with my father. So growing up, enduring so much trauma, it wasn't just in the household. I also endured bullying and a lot of unfair and unjust treatment from and by way of my family members. So as a child, I did not understand what was taking place. And so many different things, so many different, I would call it spirits or attitudes set in. It was lack of self-esteem, not knowing my self-worth. I mean, a belief or feelings of not wanting to be here because of the abuse, the unfair treatment. And it just seems like I just could not catch a break. And then it developed into some of my behavior as I endured some of the abuse and the unfair treatment, the bullying in school. I then began to lash out and react in a way that was uncontrollable, which resulted to me being a part of the judicial system in a negative manner. And so it just went from there. So I don't know if you want me to continue to go, you want me to keep it in the childhood or just kind of go out? Because I know you
Go
said
on. Yes.
Okay.
Share the
All right.
backstory.
So from there, like I say, it resulted to me being in the judicial system, becoming a juvenile delinquent, which later kind of trickled over to my adulthood. And I always had a feeling and knew that something was better out there. And I think that, I always tell people that I am a spiritual person. And I know we're going to get to that title, but I've always had a divine protection from my creator. And so in my heart, on the inside, I knew that there was something greater for me. And through all the triumphs, all the trials and the tribulations, what I resulted to doing after going through so many different things, I wanted an out. I wanted to get out of Louisiana. So I actually attended college for a year, but after, still not addressing that trauma, not receiving help for those childhood, all of that stuff that was suppressed and deep down on the inside, I was still getting into trouble, still running into encounters with the law. So I decided to go into the United States military. And in a sense, that helped. Well, I thought it was. I thought that was my way out. However, when you don't deal with childhood trauma, it only manifests in a different manner or a different way. So my behavior became quite severe while I was serving active duty. And I was required by my chain of command to receive therapy and address issues that I had endured during my childhood and also while I was actually in the military. So that led to me going and doing what I did in ETS and exiting out. And that's when I developed a passion for therapy. Because there was a stigma against therapy growing up. Growing up in my household, in my community, it wasn't a great thing or a thing that we believed in, receiving therapy or counseling. So, but when I did, it actually planted a seed and it did help me. So God basically instilled something into me to motivate me to want to be that voice for people that suffer in silence. And so I began the journey of becoming a therapist, and this is where I am now.
Wow. That is, yeah, as you tell the story, I know that you're healed from it because I'm not picking up any residual trauma. So you have released it, and you have, but because the way you tell it,
yes.
But we just use that in one sentence, where we talked about your mom trying to, murder you, and then your biological dad, molested you. Those are T1 trauma, level 1 traumas.
Absolutely.
Just to share a little bit my story, I was also sexually molested as a child, and I wrote a book about it. And in my book, I give it one paragraph.
Right.
One paragraph. I just touched on it just to show, I didn't think that I had any trauma because mine was a little different, but I touched on it just to, to give, credence to where I came from. That's it. Mm-hmm. From where I came from to where I am now.
Yes,
yes. But yeah, your trauma, like you said, and they came from the people that were supposed to love you and bring
Absolutely.
you into the world. And I'm assuming that in your book, you go into how that trauma actually affected you. We don't want to touch on it here because we want people to go to get the book and read, the details. If someone that's listening has experienced, sexual molestation as a child, it's usually from someone that is part of our inner circle when it happens to children. It's rarely your biological parents, but a lot of times aunts and uncles, and in my case it was a godfather that I called grandfather because he was like a family member. So that's basically what happens. And one of the things that Wytisha kept saying in her backstory was that she never addressed it. And I have an interview that I'm playing this week, and we're talking about core programming, because your core programming is actually, and yours was before you were 7. Your core
Absolutely.
programming is downloaded before you were 7 years old. So whatever happened before you were 7 years old becomes part of who you are. And I'm very surprised, though, that it took you all the way to the Army to get therapy. So there's a whole bunch of people that dropped the ball in your childhood, whether it's
absolutely
teachers or the counselors or whatever. You should have gotten therapy. And I'm assuming that I shouldn't assume. I'm going to ask you the question, because one of the things that I noticed, because mine happened in Guyana, which is a different world from the United States. But when I came to the United States and I wrote my book, there is I found out that a great percentage of kids don't tell. So did
absolutely.
You tell them?
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Did you tell anyone?
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yes.
No, ma'am.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, right. So see, yeah, you're a great percentage of kids don't tell. I didn't tell either until I was like 40 when I wrote my book. Then all my family is right. This happened. We don't tell. So, and I'm assuming that's because you didn't tell, which is why you didn't get counseling.
Right.
All right. Now, you didn't mention it, but in your bio, you mentioned that you were also injured. You became a disabled veteran. Actually, you did say it right in your bio.
Yes,
so,
yes, ma'am.
Talk to us about that before we proceed. What happened there?
It's really not trying to go into too much detail. Just being an active duty soldier, things happen while serving on active duty, and the body wear and tears, and there are things that just happen throughout a time frame. So over the time frame, I've endured multiple conditions within my body. And it's so funny because when people see me, from the outer appearance, they're like, where are you disabled? And so I have so much pushback when I go to get my disabled plates, when I go to get my certifications, like any type of discounts. I get so much pushback because I don't look disabled. But what I have to what I continue to do is educate people on every disability is not visual. You can't always see every disability. Having mental illness, that's considered a disability, and you can't always see it. So, anybody that I encounter, I always try to educate them on, close the door. Yeah, I try to educate them on, just basically getting the knowledge that disabilities are not always visual. But yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So yeah, you're, right, without getting into details. So it's either a form of PTSD, which is a disability, absolutely, or, the trauma, like you said, the mental illness. All right. So yes, and being an active duty, that makes that come worse. It enhances it. Absolutely. All right. So yes, you wanted to became a therapist based on your trauma experience. And, in fact, a lot of my clients become life coaches because they came into the life coaching experience. So I understand that part. But what inspired you to write the book and share your story? And why did you pick such an amazing title? And I know, again, we're jumping ahead, but as we flow, then we, as I ask the questions, we have to maybe jump things that we were going to talk about later on. Yeah. But I know from, your bio that you tried to commit suicide several times. So let's talk about that here now. Is that the reason you wrote the book? You named your book, He Wouldn't Let Me Die, because you had a purpose. So let's talk about that right now. Why did you write the book? Why did you choose the title? Did it have anything to do with your suicide attempts?
Absolutely. Okay, so yes, the title, all of that coincides with me trying to take my life. Like I said, it was trauma from the very beginning of my childhood. So and now I laugh. I don't laugh out of out of joy, but it's just more so like a coping mechanism that I have. Here nor there. Yeah, I did try multiple times of taking my own life. I did not want to be here because I just felt hopeless. I felt like I wasn't worthy of love. I felt like nobody loved me. And I always felt that I was alone. And throughout so much trauma and always just being picked on in the home, at the school, in the community, I'm just like, I never understood why it's like every time I go somewhere, somebody wants to hit on me. Am I like this person where just people just want to abuse me? So I had, when I say my self-esteem was just little to any. So from there, I just, like I say, I had tried multiple times of taking my own life. And then it goes back, the title also ties into people trying to take my life. Speaking about, my mother, the giver of life, other than my creator, her trying to take me out at the age of 5, and God still sparing my life and still having that grace and that mercy over me. And then, I even talk about in my book another near-death experience that I faced with another family member at the age of 7. So it was like during the whole entire time of my childhood, someone was trying to just take my life on top of me trying to give up. So now that I'm here where I'm at, so planted, and faith-based, I know my worth, and I'm able to look back in retrospect. And, when I just look back over my life, I'm like, my God, he wouldn't let me die. So it's like, that's where the title came from. Wow. The enemy has been trying to take me out since birth, but he wouldn't let me die. So that's how the title,
That is so beautiful. Like I said, I'm wearing sleeveless clothes. You guys are seeing my goosebumps. So yes, that is amazing. And something, that is absolutely true. Like, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and I believe that we all have a purpose, and our purpose, as in the book of Jeremiah, is that God knows your purpose before you were born. And absolutely. I also believe, based on the people that I study and follow, that we actually choose our parents. So whatever our purpose was here on earth, we chose our parents. So you chose your dad and your mom because that was what needed to get you to your pain, was for a purpose, Right. And so God didn't let you die, because now you are on blast and you're telling your story, and someone that feels, like you, downtrodden and beaten in every way and don't feel love, know that there is, like the Bible says, weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Joy does come in the morning. So, yes, ma'am, your pain is for a purpose. And I absolutely believe that. So listen, girl, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at you, and you have come through like the caterpillar. And hopefully now you've got your wings, you've got a butterfly. And I love what you say, that you created this character, which is like a white eagle. And I myself, have several episodes on the eagle, flying above the storms. The eagle doesn't run away from the storm. So flies above it, and he uses the storms to make him go higher. So that's an excellent representation. So you're doing all right. So, okay. So that was one half of the question. The other half is, why did you want to share your story?
That's amazing that you asked that. As I stated, I'm a spiritual individual. I do not subscribe to a religion, because that's something completely different. But I do believe in a creator, and I believe that the reason why I'm here is because of my creator. So, oh God, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Could you ask the question again? I'm sorry. That's
okay. Hey, like I said, you've been through a lot, and I wasn't seeing the evidence of it until now. So it's there. So
It
why did you
is.
want
It
to share
is.
your
I mean,
story? Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So which one were we on? I'm sorry.
Why did you want to share your story?
Okay. With me, I held it, and I heard what you said. You said you held yours until you was like the age of 40.
Yeah.
So I first came out with mine at the age of 27. I actually did it on social media, and I did it out of anger because honestly, I was angry with my father. I was angry with my entire family because of how they continued to carry on as if none of this stuff had taken place with me. So, I just suppressed a lot. And as time progressed, I grew a closer relationship with my creator. And then basically a peace set in. And I've always had the story on the inside of me. But when I actually got closer to writing a book, I I basically in my life I'm in a better place. And so it was no longer me coming out or lashing out with certain statements. I'm in a place now where I can actually tell the story holistically without any bitterness or without any type of anger or resentment. It is basically to help others. So what started happening to me is I could not sleep. And it was like a spiritual thing. It was like God just kept telling me, look, you overcame this. There are so many people that do not overcome this. There are so many people that has attempted to commit suicide and has accomplished it, and they're no longer here to tell the story. And so as a therapist, I talk to so many people that experience trauma, abuse, molestation, or sexual assault, and they will not talk about it. I mean, they will not come forward with it. And so it was just like he just kept telling me, you have to release this. You have to release this because your story is going to help. It's not only going to help, but it's going to heal. It's going to transform. It's going to make a difference. And honestly, I fought it for so long. Because I did not want to verbalize it or disclose it because I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, oh my God, like what are my parents going to think? Like, am I going to be ostracized? Am I going to be talked about? Am I going to be beat down? And, am I going to bring embarrassment to them, or am I going to bring embarrassment to their name? But the thing is, what I had to come to realization is it's always been dysfunction. I've always been ostracized. There's always, anytime I try to talk about this story, there are lies and it's continuously masked, and nobody wants to be held accountable. Nobody wants to admit. So I had to get to a place with me and my creator where we just had this discussion, and he was like, I'm releasing you to release this because it's not about you. It's about the people that you are going to help. Right. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. As you were talking, I was trying to think about what was my purpose in writing my book, or what did I want. And right, I didn't, I wrote my book when I was 40, and that's when I disclosed the story. And my thing, though, was I was shameful of it for some reason.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are ashamed of that. Mm-hmm. And I even wrote my book under my maiden name, which is like a pen name. I didn't use the name that anybody knows me.
Yeah.
I chose my middle name and my birth name, and that's what I wrote my book on because I was ashamed of it. And then as I started, promoting the book and started talking about it, and that is the way you get it out, actually. And that's why they say talk therapy is actually so freeing, because the more you talk about it, the more you release it, and then sooner or later, it doesn't have any hold on you. Right. And then it's absolutely ridiculous. Yours happened at 5, mine happened at 10. I have no, I didn't have anything to do with that. So being ashamed has, you have nothing to do with that. Even if you're 30 and you were raped. You don't have anything to do with that. There's no reason you should feel ashamed. But for some reason, again, it's the hardwiring of the mind, and there is the shame to it. I have to ask this, circle back though. What is your relationship with your parents right now? You're saying that they're still alive, and you're talking about this story. What's your relationship with them?
Yeah, you are actually the first person to ask that. I know I spoke briefly about it when I did my first book signing. Right now, honestly, I don't have a relationship with either one. Especially since the book has come out. Yeah. Like I said, I don't have any resentment, and I try to make that clear to so many people, because some people, they like to say, oh my God, how did your parents feel? You exposed them, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, I wish that we could have actually gone on this journey together. And to be honest, this is the thing. Like, I know that with both of my parents, trauma there was some things that happened to both of them in order for what to take place with me to take place the way that it did. So when I became older, I began to understand that it didn't begin with me. It didn't begin with them. Somewhere along the line, down the line, something took place. Yeah. And so I'm so adamant about finding answers. And that's all I wanted, because so I did confront both of my parents. I'm like, what happened? Let's talk about this thing. Yeah. But I am a newer generation than them. And that generation is just like, whatever happened, it happened, and we're not going to talk about it. So.
Well, they're probably not holding any accountability, because they were never arrested or charged for anything, and they're going to say that what you're saying is not true, because if it's true, then I don't know what the statute of limitations are in these things, but they're not going to admit it. But yes, you have to talk about it, and a lot of people wait until their parents die actually before they come out and talk about these things, because they know how it's going to affect the family. So I give you kudos for being brave enough to talk about it now, so that you can help other people and your parents. And it's very true. Hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't, something happened to your parents. That's the reason they did that. And you've learned that in therapy, because it's actually very true. But they should go on a journey of healing, and, they should ask your forgiveness, to be quite honest, and they should do that before they die. Yeah. So the next question is, I'm going to ask the hard questions. The next question is, you say that you don't have any animosity because you understand that something happened to them. So have you forgiven them?
That is a good question. Oh
hey, this is therapy too.
I love it. I'll say this. I don't have any ill will towards them as people. I'm very, very honest. I'm a very honest individual. I do have some sort of feeling, and I'm going to call it mixed emotions. I honestly cannot put an emotion on it. I can't, at this point in time, I'll say it's difficult for me to put an emotion on it. But as you stated, the accountability part, nobody wants to sit down and talk about it. I mean, I'm not even looking for an apology. I would just like to sit down and talk about, where did this all stem from? And it's like, the things that had been coming back to me when I did write the book, and even prior to, it was constant denial. And they were doing things as far as reaching out to people that really didn't even have anything to do with it, and creating certain stories to cover them up, which actually made it look like guilt, because I wasn't talking about it as much as they thought. But the guilt began to manifest. So I think So I think what has made me feel some type of way. It's about the behavior that's being displayed throughout the entire process. It's not them as people, it's the behavior. I just wish it was more of a maturity thing. And like I said, I wish we could all sit down and get through this together. But that's not always the case. Everybody, you know, most people are not where you are on your healing journey. And I said this before, you're well versed with the Bible. And I said this, Jesus Christ was, he was here, he was put in Mary, and Joseph, we know the story behind that. He wasn't his biological father, but the story was never about the mother and the father. The story was about Jesus and his message and what he came to do.
Good for you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think I see where you're going. The story is not about them; it's about you. I love it.
And the message, and what he came to do. This story can help heal other people, and that's my goal. My goal is to help other people.
I've actually never heard it put like that, and you're putting it like that from a woman that you said you don't subscribe to any religion, but that's actually very profound. That is very true. I've never heard it put like that before, and it was never about them. It was always about but Jesus. Mary was just a carrier.
The carrier, there you go.
Of God in the flesh.
Yes,
so that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Listen, you're doing great. We're talking about some very difficult things here, and you're doing great. Excellent. Now I want to transition into the mental health part of it.
Okay.
Because we talk about trauma, we talk about therapy, we talk about suicide attempts, we talk about the fact that you're a disabled veteran because you have a mental illness. You didn't label it, but that's fine. So
and physical. I also have physical.
Go ahead.
Conditions. No, I was saying I also have physical conditions as well. Okay. So yes.
All right. Some physical conditions as well. All right. No problem. So, but what's happening is mental health awareness is becoming much more popular. You mentioned briefly that our community always had a stigma towards it. It's very true. It's very true. You tell a guy to go to therapy, or a Black person to go to therapy, they're thinking you're saying that they're crazy or something.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to go. And you speak to a white person, and everybody's in therapy.
Absolutely.
I was listening to an interview the other day with Kendall Jenner. Kendall Jenner, who is like almost nothing is wrong with her. She's got an excellent family. She's rich, whatever, and she's in therapy. So the white people always go to therapy, and our Black community don't want to go to therapy. And what happens? They carry the hurt, they carry the trauma, and it goes intergenerational, because if they don't fix it in this life, then the next generation comes around. So yeah, mental health awareness is becoming very popular. I actually just watched the Netflix documentary with Selena Gomez right now called My Mind and Me. And it was powerful. That young girl is trying to do something to bring mental health awareness to the schools, because, she's had a difficult time. I'm very, very sorry for her. She's got the mental illness. She's got, she's bipolar. She's got lupus. Anyway, so my question is, and you also said that the mental health awareness, took you into the role, into, breaking in the judicial system. Mm-hmm. So can you speak on which one helped you the most? Was it serving in the military, being a counselor, an author, and the judicial system? Which one do you think helped you most with your mind empowerment, which is basically, a phrase that you said you coined, and which is basically perfect for this show, because we're all about the mind.
Absolutely. To be honest with you, all were necessary, all were profound. The combination of every last milestone, every last accomplishment is what actually has helped me to this point. The experience of me being on the wrong side of the judicial system actually helps me when it comes to counseling, because I can also counsel and help individuals that that has been incarcerated, which I actually worked in a correctional facility. So I can relate on those levels. I can also help and assist other veterans that are experiencing and suffering from PTSD, any type of military trauma, any type of military sexual trauma, things of that nature. And just, being a therapist, of course, the one of the best techniques and characters that you can possess is empathy, being able to empathize, being able to relate to a client, because it's one thing when you have an education is great, but most people, they identify when the limitations of education. But when you sit down and you can actually listen to a person, and then you can relate and understand, and then also give them recommendations or help or resources that you have also utilized for yourself or applied to your own life, that takes it to another level.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's just in coaching. I remember specifically one of my coaching clients tells me that she would not go to a life coach that hasn't gone through the same experience that she wants help with.
Absolutely.
Because she doesn't want anybody to tell her stuff that they haven't gone through.
Absolutely.
So, which is why a lot of life coaches and even therapists and things like that always help the what they've overcome. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're right. When you're sitting on, you're not just book read, but you have experienced it and you are on the other side of it. You can't help anybody if you're still in it.
Right.
If you're on the other side of it, then you can help. And also, it's like a light. When you're in a tunnel, you need to know that there's a light at the other end of it. And,
absolutely.
Speaking to someone that's gone through a life, because yes, girlfriend, you have gone through it, and it started,
yes,
it started early in your life. Yeah.
Yes.
You didn't get a break. You have gone through it. You know what I mean? So to come out on the other side of the light, I love the military. I've not been in the military, and I've not had any of my kids in the military. But I will tell you that I love the military. I love what they do. Mm-hmm. I love how they train you. I love everything about the system, because I know that if you can go through that system, when you come out a different person. Yeah. So I'm glad that you were able to get the help in the military, and I'm pretty sure you learned some other skills in there as well. That Absolutely. Is helping you in your journey, mm-hmm. towards, joy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, so mental health awareness is very important, and I'm glad. Now, as you were talking, I thought of something where the most trauma is, and that's in the foster care system. Do you work with them at all?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. Do you want me to expound on it?
Not really. That was just a circle back, because you talked about how you help people already. Yes, but I do know, because I adopted some kids from the foster care system as a foster mom, and then I am an adoptive mom, and I know that everybody that's in the foster care system is been through trauma. Right. And I was just wondering if you're working with them at all.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, what is the goal of your book? What do you want someone reading your story, reading about your suicide attempts, reading about your relationship with your parents, reading about where you are today? What do you want them to walk away with after they put the book down? What do you think you want them to think in their mind? And, what is the goal?
The goal is to help others that have been through the same experience understand that, as you stated, and I love the way that you put it, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I know by being a therapist, there are so many people that are still stuck in their childhood trauma. And a lot of it comes from not wanting to talk about it, not being able to talk about it. But like I said, I was bold enough and just just really compassionate enough to say, hey, there are so many people out there that are enduring what I'm enduring, and they need to know that they're not alone. So I always tell people that, you know, this book was to basically be the voice for people that suffer in silence. You know, I want this book to be able to reach people in every nation, because I've shared it's not about gender. It's not about gender. It's not about race. It's not about the creed. It's not about social economics, because we all on some level has experienced some type of trauma, some type of abuse. It doesn't matter if it was psychological, mental, emotional, you know, and I've shared this before. I mean, you can experience trauma as small as your parent making you tie your shoes 100 times a day. And when you become an adult, you no longer want to wear shoes with shoelaces, you know, or it can be as severe as the abuse and the trauma and the sexual abuse that I endured. You know, it's from as small or as big, you know, as it get. But I want people to be able to read this book and say, if she did it, I can do it too. If she overcame it, I can overcome it too. And I just want to be that voice, and I want to be that witness that you can overcome it. You can overcome it, that the trauma does not control you. It does not have to control you. You can find a way to heal and find a purpose and find joy, peace, and happiness through all that you endure. And you have to be willing to let go of the past. So yeah, just wanting people to understand that they can overcome it. They can come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You can overcome it, but you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And
oh,
guess
yes.
what? A lot of people
oh, yes.
don't want to do the work. What was that? I'm sorry.
No, I say, oh, yes. That's part of it. That's huge. You have to be willing to do the work, for sure.
Yeah, I know that. A lot of people, you know, nothing happens without work. You don't release anything unless you work on it. So,
Absolutely.
you know, Byron Katie has a book that's called The Works or The Work. And I always quote that because it's work. It's work. It's if you're going to change your thoughts, and if you're going to change your mindset, and if you're going to change your situation, if you're going to change anything that you're going to change, it takes work, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Especially changing programming, because
yes.
we were pre-programmed. And if you're going to be changing the programming, you've got to do the work. Yeah. So else, what do? You go on and you get kids, and then you traumatize them, and then they go on, they traumatize, and the trauma goes to the second and third and fourth generation. You've got to make a point where it stops here. It stops here. I'm going to get help. I think most insurance companies now include therapy.
Right.
Yeah, you know, but so you can't even say that you can't afford it any longer. You know, it's covered under medical insurance now. So go definitely get help. That's
Absolutely.
amazing. All right. All right, listen. So, all right. So how can listeners get a copy of your book and connect with you in social media? You do have a website, right?
I have the Wytisha payhip.com.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to continue with the rest?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So tell us your website, tell us your social media handles, tell the listeners how they can get a hold of, pick up a copy of your book. And listen, guys, I need you to support her. You know, it took a lot of bravery to tell her story. So you need to buy her book. You need to support her. And of course, you need to learn from her story. If you had any kind of trauma, whether it's sexual, like she said, there's emotional, sexual, all kinds of trauma. And I think they're saying that some of us have experienced some form of it. We don't go through life without experiencing it in some way. So yeah, right. So go ahead. What's your website?
Okay, to purchase the book, you can go to Amazon.com and just put in my name, Wytisha Williams, or you can put in the title, He Wouldn't Let Me Die. You can also purchase it off of WytishaPayHip.com. You can reach me on Facebook and also Instagram, and that would be Wytisha Rising Phoenix. That's the name for both of those. And if anybody,
Wytisha what?
Wytisha Wytisha, Rising, RISING, Phoenix, and that's PHOENIX.
Okay.
And that's the same name for Instagram and Facebook.
And Facebook. Okay. All right. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. And my listening audience know that I would have a transcript of my conversation with Wytisha on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. It would have links to her book page on Amazon, her website, and her social media handles, just in case you missed it. So, Wytisha, listen, I applaud you for telling your story. I applaud you for the work that you're doing. I applaud you for living your purpose. And I understand why God wouldn't let you die, because you have a purpose in your life. I am sorry that you had to endure so much pain, but hey, I'm glad that you are on the other side of it, and that you did the work to get you on the other side of it. And I hope that you get some kind of closure where your parents come around and, I would say, apologize, and maybe say something like, we didn't know, whatever, bipolar, because they're usually some undisclosed problem, and they can say, you know what I mean, just to make you feel better that they were going through something. I wish that for you. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I say it's just a lot of us in the communities deal with mental illnesses that just go unaddressed, and that's what I think it is.
Yes.
So
yeah, I mean, that would make you feel a little better because you mentioned that you felt so unloved and your self-esteem, you didn't have any. So that would be, to help you with your healing, to understand why they did it. And I understand why you said that you would love somebody to just sit down and talk to you, to have a conversation, so that you can understand why, because it's true. Until we understand why, our minds keep spinning all these reasons. It's like, it's on their own, just spinning and spinning and spinning and trying to figure it out. Was it me? Was it them? Things like that. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation. Like I said, it touched part of my story, and I'm glad that, that I can empathize, because I myself has been there where you have been. So thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you, and I wish you good luck with your speaking. I know that you are a transformational speaker, and this is a very, very good story to speak about. So I wish you much success in that, and hopefully that you would get a lot of people reaching out to you in social media. Any last words before we wrap up?
I just would like to thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm grateful. I am truly appreciative, and I'm praying and hoping that this interview and that my book does heal and help the people that are suffering in silence.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, all right. Well, listen, that is a wrap. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I appreciate you. Until next time, namaste.
Have a blessed one. Thank you.
All right. I think we've stopped it. Let's see if we've stopped it. Oh, shit.